Okay, so thanks so much for joining me for the Incarnation playthrough.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, so this was made by you and a musician.
Right. So it was me and a musician whose name is Amit Katindol, who helped me worked on the music and sound effects. Yeah.
And so, well, there's so much to talk about the game, but the controls is the one that I want to talk about first off because we see it here on screen. But did you purposely limit yourself to only mouse controls?
Yeah. So it's actually an interesting story. When I was, I think it was probably my second year in Bezalel Academy of Arts and Design, where I studied game development. I saw like a final project, but made by one student, and one of the lecturers who like came to review it had such a hard time using the keyboard to manipulate what was happening on screen. So this was when I thought maybe I should make my game like mouse only,
Yeah.
which was an interesting challenge because I actually made an action game that's only used by a mouse and also like an action platformer. So that was an interesting challenge and limitation.
Yeah, I think it's really genius, and that's one thing that really I think makes your game stick out, is that it works so well too that it doesn't feel limited by the mouse, even though that's the control scheme.
Yeah, so I really like experimenting with input systems in my games. And my games tend to be a bit frustrating because of this, usually.
Yeah.
There's a game I made called Press Control, which is all about not being able to directly control like your character, uh, because like you have a character that controls another character with a set of keys that's actually positioned in the game world, and the second character then has to control a third one, also with a set of keys that are positioned within the game world.
Yeah.
So it creates sort of a lag in your actions. And in another game that I made actually in school, in my third year, it's called Space Cadets. It's a two-button game where you control a spaceship,
Yeah.
but you have like five stations, but in order to control each and every one of them, you have to move between them. So you're like one cadet controlling five different stations on this ship. So you can't actually steer if you don't go to that station specifically. Uh, yeah, so this is something that I just like experimenting with, which is input systems in my games.
Yeah, it makes them feel so unique, um, and obviously unique visually. It's very unique. I think your like the limited color palette just makes every level just stick out so much. I think
Yeah, I think this is something. It's like a part of my design philosophy is just do
oh,
like the best with the least. And so this is why I like pixel art. This is why I like limiting my color palettes. Why I like doing all of those weird things with input systems.
yeah.
Generally, it just breeds interesting results. So yeah.
So we've seen a few times already the well, on the left side of the screen, sort of I don't know what you would call this, but sort of the build of your character, and how. Well, again, I guess this goes back to maybe your philosophy with games. But um, I was really surprised at first because I feel like in most games the progression comes from learning more and doing more, but in our Incarnation it's the opposite. The more you progress, the more you lose, and then sort of you have to learn how to play the game differently.
Right. So this has actually been something that's interesting for me for a long time because Incarnation actually it's my graduation project from the academy, and at first I didn't want to make it this game. I actually wanted to make a game that's using artificial intelligence at its core, and I ran into some technical difficulties, so I decided to pursue this sort of design, which has been like in the back of my mind for about 4 years, um, even before I started studying. And I really wanted to make a game that's about like not like a generic power fantasy, but something that can actually tell you something about yourself and about being humble. So it ended up becoming this game about being a god who wants to become a human, and sort of it's a bit grim, right? Because the
Yeah.
first thing that you do is you lose your immortality. You
Yeah.
become immortal, which is, I think, was interesting for me. It's like poetically, it's about the loss of potential, because you start as a kid and you can like do sort of whatever you want, as you like. Your imagination can go wild, and at some point you make like decisions and life choices which sort of limit you. And this is like the themes that I wanted to pursue with this game.
Yeah.
And I ran into the story. It's a biblical story, and it's actually from one of the stories that are not officially like in the Bible, more like in the realm of Jewish mysticism. And it's the book of Enoch, which tells the story about an angel who rebelled and wanted to sort of go to the human world. And it really inspired me for this. And like the thing that you see on the left, it's called the Tree of Life from the Kabbalah. So I really wanted to incorporate some like Jewish mysticism and what I like to call Jewish mythology.
Yeah.
In the game, because like I'm not, I don't believe in God or anything like this. But I think to draw inspiration from those story and this cultural treasure is super important. And we've seen a lot of like games about um, Catholicism, and I just wanted to bring something that's more close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just a bit about those stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really unique, and the idea that I don't know if that's directly from what you were saying, but that you start off as a character, you have wings, and then eventually you have to lose those wings and learn how to walk on your feet instead of
Yeah.
just flying around.
Yeah, so this actually changes the way you play the game as well, because
Yeah.
with the wings you have this dash move that you can use to sort of dodge things, and once you lose them, like you see the animation and they're sort of floating, and then you have to start like jumping around, which is, it can be a bit harder.
Yeah.
Some of the like later powers that you can use are also fairly interesting. It took me a while to figure out exactly which powers I wanted to use. I also wanted them to be sort of orthogonal to each other, so that eventually, even if I wanted to, say, randomly generate this tree every single game, they wouldn't be too dependent on each other. You'll still have some interesting experience with all of them. And the later ones are quite interesting, I think. One of them is about your endurance. So it actually gets you to have fall damage if you lose it. And if you haven't lost the wings, for example, and you choose to lose it, your dash move can actually get you to be damaged if you sort of dash into a wall.
Oh.
So yeah, there are some quirks here and there, which are pretty interesting.
Yeah, and the game it's quite difficult as well. Like on my first few playthroughs, I followed the leftward path the whole way, and I made it down to the hourglass, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm just one step away from getting the last thing unlocked. But no, it wasn't. That's not the case. You have to.
Yeah.
Is that so? You have to unlock everything to be able to reach the very end.
Right, so there are 10 stages and you have to go through all of them to reach the end. Which is why like picking the hourglass is not such a good idea, because the hourglass is about being prone to aging, basically. So once you pick it up, you're on a clock, like sort of on a timer, and you lose your max HP every cycle. I think it's about 1 minute or maybe 1.5 minutes. I'm not sure what's the value it has actually.
I learned that the hard way. That oh no, that as you go, you start to lose health, and I'm panicking trying to reach the end, and I can't see the end because I've lost that ability as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you worked with a musician.
Right.
the music and how it affects sort of your it reacts to your how much health you have. I think that's genius because you're playing it and all of a sudden the music gets like quite like lower leveled and
Right.
it builds so much tension.
Yeah, there's a low pass that's coming to action once your HP is too low.
Yeah.
And there are actually some interesting things that we experimented with in this game. Besides just the being low HP and something happens is fairly common in games.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to do, and actually Amit was, super it was such a great experience working with him on this. I really wanted you to have like the whole soundtrack be adaptive to the choices that you made with your powers. So what we did is the soundtrack itself. We're using a plugin to Unity that's called Fmod that actually allows us to sort of turn on and off some tracks that are played during the game based on things that are happening in the game. So
I see.
we gave specific tracks and specific instruments for every single power that you have, and once you lose them, the music sort of becomes thinner and thinner because you lose those tracks.
Of course,
so,
yeah.
like the last one that you'll be hearing is like some tribal drums, like a tribal drum track that actually turns on in the third world, which you have yet to reach in those playthroughs.
Yeah.
So like the first world is like the angelic area. We have like you can hear the choir, and we have some synths going on. And in the second world, some like guitars are coming into play, and we wanted it to be like a bit more like metal and rock and roll. And in the third world, it becomes like tribal and more like raw in a way, because you're moving from the world of angels to the world of humans and then to the world of beasts. And I want to sort of convey this through the music, through the color palette, and it was an awesome experience. And seeing Amit bringing this like to life was truly inspiring.
And the script in between the levels, is that Hebrew?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I just says chapter A, chapter B. So
I see.
Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and and it's also like the letter that you see at the top right corner of the screen.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's just Hebrew letters going from Aleph to Yod through the entire playthrough.
And
so if you go this way, like the route of not flying, it tends to actually be a bit easier. People I found out, because the one-shot kill that you have with the death touch power is just so powerful. It allows you to sort of counter the projectiles and kill everyone in one hit, so you don't really care about how powerful they are. It's just a bit stronger of a strategy to use. And for this game specifically, it was sort of an idea that I wanted to pursue for, as I said, 4 years. And this is not actually how I imagined it. And today, when I'm thinking about Incarnation, I'm thinking more of a more story-driven experience, if you could imagine.
Yeah.
Where those themes that I'm sort of experimenting with here in a mechanical level will sort of be more apparent in the story, and with the characters and the choices that you make will have more consequences besides just the music and the mechanical part of it. I actually wanted to make it into a more story heavy game, which I may actually pursue one day. I don't know.
I have some questions that it's really I'm being a bit selfish, but I'm looking for advice to sort of get further within the game. Is it is there such a focus on just reaching the end, or is there much benefit from sort of exploration and sort of trying to defeat enemies, or is it really about just get to the end as quickly as possible?
Yeah, so I think getting to the end as quickly as possible is probably the right way to go. Specifically, some enemies can drop health packs, like meat parts that
Yeah.
you can eat to heal yourself, which is it becomes more and more important as you go and once you lose the regenerate ability. But yeah, it like this project was made in like 2 months.
Was
So what is it?
That's really impressive.
Yeah,
Two
thank
months.
you.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's probably the best to just go find the altar and reach it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Do not touch too many angels because they actually decrease your maximum HP as you hit them,
Oh,
as
that's
opposed to
what.
like the humans and the animals. Yeah, so you can see that if like one of
Oh
those
no.
angels touches you, your max HP is actually being lowered a little bit. So and you actually reach the beast world, which is cool. Um, so yeah, just go straight for the altar. Once you lose the compass, it becomes a bit harder
Yeah.
because the levels also tend to become more and more horizontal. Like they start sort of
Oh.
vertical, and they become more and more horizontal. So that once you lose the compass ability, it won't be as easy to find the exits.
Yeah.
You do have some music cues that you can hear once you get like closer. The music sort of shifts to like another phase. But yeah, this is generally how I would do it, and just never get hit by the angels, like the angelic deities.
And when the angels hit you, there's no way to regain that lost max
No,
health.
so maximum health you cannot regain,
Okay.
only like regular damage.
Yeah. And graphically, what inspired to make Incarnation the way it looks? Because it's such a unique style with, well, from the pixel art and then the color palette.
Yeah, so I actually the first thing that was interesting to me was using the light. Actually, I thought like the light will be very important in this game, and there are also like three ways, three filters through which you can see the light. Because you just like shrunk the aura that you have, which determines like how far you can actually reach with your damage. Which is super important because you cannot hit people unless they're within the range of your light. And then you can see like around the central circle, which is like the main area of play. You can sort of see like what's going on around the edges.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, but you can see it. Unless you lose the power of the either, which actually shuts it down as well, so it's much harder to see
Oh.
clearly. So this was something that I actually experimented with when I started working on this game, where the orb that you have and that you used to hit people with was actually limited to the area of light that you have. So it was a very weird sort of experience because it became very physical. It was actually limited to only the lit area, so like you couldn't go around corners and you had to position yourself correctly.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. It made the game much harder. But I really like enjoyed this sort of experience. It was very heavy math-wise, like for me, because I don't have like any I don't computer science or mathematical background.
Yeah.
Like academic background, at least. So yeah, so dealing with light and shadow and contrast was very important to me. As I said, limiting the palette was also crucial. Choosing the right colors to allow the red to always be there and to be the same red through all three levels. The red of the blood, which is yeah, it was super crucial. And then just experimenting with some palettes. I started from some palette that I found. I think it was actually my first experiment. It was a palette that I stole from a game called Quomp by Stuffed Wombat and some people. It's a one-button game that I really like, and I think everyone should play it. It's just amazing, so condensed of a design, so clean. So I stole this one, and then I came up with my own palette eventually. But Yeah, so that's basically it. Yeah, and in terms of pixel art, I've been making pixel art since I was a kid.
Yeah.
In elementary school, I picked up RPG Maker 2000. It
Mm.
was, so this is when I created my first
20,
video games.
20 plus year old program at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty cool experience because it wasn't actually programming, but I learned some programming concepts through it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I liked like to modify some of the pixel art that they had, and then went to do some of my own pixel art. And I didn't do pixel art for years, but I actually got back to it just a little bit before I started Academy in itself. So yeah.
And how many years have you been studying at the academy?
It's been 4 years, and I'm actually starting to teach their game design.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, this next semester, which is super exciting. I just finished there, and I'm starting to teach, which is I'm very humbled by their decision to like take me into the like to be a lecturer
Yeah.
on game design. And I'm actually teaching game design through board games, which is one of my biggest passions since I was 15. I think I'm 28 now, so 13 years. Where this is like the thing I love the most. I have like a small collection here, and I mean,
Yeah.
besides like my girlfriend, my cat, mom and dad, but I love board games sometimes even more than I enjoy video games. And you seem to be doing great.
Yeah, I'm surprised by but I have so low health at this point that I don't
it's gonna
feel
be
too
hard.
confident. Yeah.
And it's happening. Yeah, you just lost some of your max
Oh
HP.
no.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you bring up board games. Oh no, I was so close.
So close.
I think we'll go for. I'll do one last run, and then we can sort of end up the interview. But one question that I want to ask is, since you're studying or have studied game design, and anyone who aspires to get into game development, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think my first advice would be to start developing, and starting development is probably the easiest in the context of a game jam. This is how I studied, and like most of my games were created during or in the context of a game jam, or like sometimes it's a 48-hour game jam, sometimes it's a bit longer. But I think you learn the most through game jams, through working with other people, and specifically board games. If we're like that topic, board games are a great way to like learn and feel game design, because something about the medium is just so raw and transparent, and it teaches you communication. It teaches you conveying a message to people, because with board games you actually have to manipulate the pieces the way the designer worked, like wanted you to, without him being there and without a program to sort of enforce the rules on you. So you actually have to be very careful with the decisions that you make in the context of designing a board game, and even starting small with very very simple concepts like memory games or set collections, like experimenting with components. I think board games are we're seeing the effect on the video game industry in the last few years now, with games like Slay the Spire, which are basically also deck builders, which we had with Dominion, I think, since 2007 or something. And then, once they come into the digital space, it allows for some interesting things to happen. Yeah, so board games are I think they're a very good source of inspiration specifically. But if you want to like start making video games and want to become a professional, or even just dabble and see if it's for you, game jams are probably the best way to go. Find a local community, engage with people who are like-minded and who want games. If you're a coder, find an animator. If you're like an artist, animator, find a programmer, and learn together. This is how I did this with my first partner, Omel. And it worked out pretty good for us, I think, in terms of learning and like, you know, getting to learn the ropes and see how this process is actually made. Yeah, this is how I would do it. Find a local community, do game jams, and play board games, just because this is what it requires to be.
Yeah, and
And like watch movies and do some cool stuff, you know.
Yeah, and
I think so many people who want to become video game developers, their only source of inspiration is video games, and this is like, I think, not the best way to go. Like if you go into any sort of creative space and you want to bring something new to it, you better have some other sources of inspiration besides the thing that you're actually doing.
Yeah, I agree. I know that studios, like the specific, or some studios anyways, that they often look for people who their video game experiences may be limited because they offer such a new perspective instead of like someone like you or I, we could tell you like a lot of people would be just influenced by video games and what they know or understand video games to be, but someone who has a brand new perspective offers so much more vision than
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And we see it with students, you know, actually in Bezalel Academy. So there are people who know video games who come to develop video games, and people who don't know video games who come to develop video games. And the results are vastly experienced, and often you see some very interesting experimental ideas with people who never had too much hardcore experience with video games, because they're not as limited in the concepts and in the things that they see as what a digital interactive experience can be. So sometimes it's actually a strength to not be native to this world.
Yeah, I agree.
I think you might just do it.
I hope so. I hope I said that, oh, this will be my last run, and I'm doing so good. And you've mentioned the music before, and I want to mention that I've been hearing it more now, how it reflects what level you're on, and now that metal guitar is sort of gone, and it's a bit more tribal, and there's more voices, and yeah, it's really, really cool.
Oh, you have fall damage now, so watch out for that.
I noticed now I took 2 hits, and oh shit, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So the high impact, that's from fall damage, and is there any other sources that would affect the high impact?
So it's fall damage if you can't fly, and if you can fly, then just running into a wall won't do any damage to you, but if you dash into a wall accidentally, you will be damaged.
Okay.
So,
oof. I don't know if I'm gonna make it.
Careful, man. There you go.
And are there other games that you'd like to mention that you've worked on or that you've created while we have you? Oh no.
Oh no!
Oh, I'm still alive somehow.
Nice.
Oh, no.
Yeah, those spikes are actually much stealthier in the last level, like in the last section of the game.
Oh, and I thought I had a chance to maybe go find some meat and then just quickly got spiked.
I'm so sorry about that.
Great. So yeah, I think we can sort of end it about here. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we end?
It's been a super fun experience. So thank you so much, David. And I hope to catch you like later and talk about maybe how your studying goes and
yeah, absolutely.